A lot of people have commented on Holly's deadlift, and we've seen some snap cities, we've seen some, Sir Snaps a lot, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, so she lifts with a round back. One of the major things we hear a lot is don't lift with a round back. Round back deadlift is going to hurt you, and interestingly, she's never actually hurt her lower back. So I want to, you would be like the expert on this. So I want to know, like, is there more risk? Is there anything she can do? Or are some people just equipped to lift that way? So I thought maybe if you got a chance to take a look at her, we could see.
Yeah, absolutely. So you answered my first question, which was going to be what has been her injury history.
Yeah.
You said she doesn't have really any low back history of injuries or pain, so that's a good thing.
Now when you say you said before, like, my lower back hurts, but you mean sore, right?
Yeah, just muscle soreness.
Okay.
When I was young, I did ballet dancing. So for 12 years, I'm in this position, really lordotic. So I feel like I actually have a really difficult time getting my spine back into like that nice neutral position. So I've done a lot of like work on strengthening my core. Like I really have tried to get it as straight as possible. But yeah, I didn't have any pain.
So we'll take a look, but the first thing always to consider is how much rounding is happening and where the rounding is coming from.
Yep.
So differentiating whether the rounding is coming much more from the thoracic spine or the lumbar spine.
Yep.
Then understanding the difference of the normal curvature of the lower back, which is a slightly lordotic curve, and understanding when it goes from lordosis to neutral and then from neutral to flexion and what that degree is. Now, there is a lot of controversy surrounding the topic of flexion of the lower back, specifically for the deadlift, and there is no concrete answer. Now, we do know that end range flexion at the lower back is a risk factor for specifically disc pathologies because the weakest part of the disc, of the annular disc, is on the anterior side. So picture when the vertebrae are stacked on each other and you flex, more pressure comes on the anterior side, which is the most susceptible part of the disc. So strictly talking about disc pathology, yes, it might be an increased risk factor for that particular injury, but that's only one of, say, 10 different things that could be going on at the lower back. Then the second thing to consider is movement preparation. We are able to adapt to a whole lot of things, stimulus and movements, and so you can get to a point where you adapt your body and your spine and your muscles and your tendons and your ligaments, you strengthen them specifically in those positions so that position becomes safe for you. So then again, if you've always lifted with this amount of rounding, you've never had any injury, you've never had any pain, then you might have gotten to a point where your muscles, tendons, and ligaments and discs are conditioned to be able to take that amount of load in those particular postures without any increase in susceptibility of injuries. So that's another thing to consider. I like to tell people there's no such thing as bad movement, just unpreparedness for movement.
Yeah.
But then again, I'm not entirely sold on the idea of it's okay to round your back, especially under load. I would never tell anyone that's trying to lift the most amount of weight to purposefully round their backs because I don't know, my common sense, like in the back of my head, tells me that it's probably not such a good idea to lift like that. So always learn the rules before you break the rules. Try to condition your body to the movement patterns that you're going to be practicing, especially at higher weights, and just use your common sense. Try to lift with the most technically proficient, as you can, essentially. But we'll take a look and continue discussing.
No, well, it's interesting that I actually, this is really a new sport for me, so I have only been deadlifting now for probably consistently 2 years. That's it. Prior to that, I hadn't really done any type of compound lifts. I'd really avoided them for a long time because I just found them to be really uncomfortable. Found out, did a little bit of research, that it was just a lot of imbalances and weaknesses, so I've gone out of my way to try and strengthen these. Looking back at the deadlift, I actually started originally in a sumo position, which would make sense for me because I have really short arms. I can get a little bit closer to the bar and there's less bar travel. a little bit more efficient. But I was getting a lot of hip flexor problems, and it was coming up to a meet. So I actually, on the day of my meet, I had to switch to conventional, and I had never ever done conventional within like a 4 or 5 month like block. So it was really challenging. But then after that meet, I did my second one recently, and I pulled conventional, and that's only when I've started to see these rounding issues. But lighter loads, you'll see like I don't really have any rounding. It's just when I start to hit that, you know, within that 5% range of my max, that I can start to see it. So I'm interested to see what you can offer as far as advice of correcting that.
Yes,
so.
absolutely. I'd like to see what the degree of flexion is,
Yep.
and kind of how does it present itself. I mean, it seems to be that the rounding is effort dependent, not so much intensity dependent. So your first reps look really nice, and then as you do more and more, you fatigue a little bit more, then you start losing more of that neutral spine. But as I see it now, it's not so bad.
The spots where I find that my lift is weakest, so it's usually like at the midpoint of the lift, so I've been doing block deadlifts and just really focusing on my technique, like lightweight, really just keeping tight, lats on. I have a few drills and things that I've been doing to kind of practice getting my hips kind of tucked under rather than I find I get a better engagement when I'm putting myself into the right position before I start. So I can't figure the name of the drills, I would have to show you, but they're basically just trying to hit, yes, everything is to do with posterior tilt.
As far as the two first things that you mentioned, the block pulls and reducing the intensity or the weight, I think those are two common mistakes people make when they're trying to fix a technical error that occurs at high percentages. So the first thing is you're dissecting the lift, putting yourself in the position where you commonly miss. The thing is that you don't start from there, you start from the floor, right? So what happens is that usually where you start seeing the technical fault is a result of something that came beforehand. Either it's a bracing issue or a positional issue, or you know, the way that your shoulders are too far forward or your hips are too far out. So I think that isolating the area of the movement that you're trying to fix is not necessarily going to fix the issue. It's going to be a matter of working it into the entire movement. And then the second thing you mentioned is lowering the weight. Anyone can make 50% look pretty.
Right.
Anyone, and any movement. But if you're having that technical breakdown at, say, when you're approaching your max, then you should be working at that intensity to fix that, if the issue is motor control related. Because essentially it's going to be a matter of making your brain understand what you want your body to do. And that can only come at those percentages. There's no way, you can do 500 deadlifts with the bar with your straight back. And the second you put that 80%, your back's gonna go back to how it was. The same thing in weightlifting, for example. Did you ever do snatch, clean, and jerk?
Yeah.
So say you were trying to go for a PR and you missed that lift at 102%, for example. What's it gonna take to fix that? Going back down to 50%, or trying again at 102 and trying to figure out what broke you at that percentage?
Yeah. That makes sense.
I think I've got all three here, so next one should be my first attempt. Maybe that was your third.
I can't remember. I would have got more excited.
Damn, you look good in that singlet. Not a lot of people can pull that off.
That's very important for women. It makes you look good in the singlet.
At that point, it's up to you. Like, do you want to have a more aesthetically pleasing deadlift, or do you not? And there are things you can do to have your back be straighter. Certain drills, certain exercises, and certain cues that I can give you. But
Well, how about we go through some of those drills? Yeah?
Sure.
Yeah, I think everyone will probably want to know.
one of the main things that happens when people start rounding their lower backs is they think that it's an issue at the level of the spine, so they start training their erectors, they hammer them down a lot, but actually the issue might be coming from an ineffective or weak glute. So something that you can do is, because the glutes are in charge of hip extension, so So if you strengthen your glutes and your hamstrings, then that might take some of the pressure, the tension off the erectors of the lower back. So that way you don't have to rely on them to complete the lift. You can rely on actual hip extensors or strong hip extensor muscle like the glute and the hamstrings to finish the lift. And then the second part is understanding what kind of muscles contribute to the stability of the spine. So you obviously have all the muscles that run along the spine, but also muscles like the lats and the external obliques are primary and secondary stabilizers of the spine. The lats are the only muscle that attach all the way on the humerus onto your iliac crest. And when they're tight, you know, they wrap around all the way onto your core through the thoracolumbar fascia. So having bigger lats and having strong lats and being able to understand how to use them, that can also contribute to the stability of your back and eventually being able to have a straighter back.
Yep.
So just some muscles that are commonly neglected when dealing with this problem, the lats, the external obliques, the glutes, and the hamstrings, that can massively contribute to a better position of the low back. We can go through some drills there. So first we're gonna cover an exercise for the lats. Now obviously pull-ups are great, but not a lot of people can do them the right way. A lot of people cheat them and start bending out their biceps first, but we really wanna make sure that we engage the upper back and really engage the lats in the movement. So rack chins are a great substitute for pull-ups, and it's an exercise that really anyone can do if you scale it accordingly.
Now, should I be doing a wide grip here or a narrow grip? What would you prefer?
You can do whatever really.
Okay.
For you, it's challenging because you also compete in bodybuilding, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I would say grow your back as much as possible so you could have,
Yeah.
you know, thicker back, more stability. But for you, it's challenging because you can't really do that.
Yeah, it's something we've actually been incorporating a lot of this particular exercise in my program, just in post powerlifting actually. When we have our feet forwards or front of the center of gravity, you tend to get a better lat stretch, so you completely extend the muscle and then you're better able to engage that. Whereas if you're just doing a regular hanging pull-up or a hanging chin-up, like Steph said, you can tend to cheat a little bit and you can start to use other muscle groups which aren't your lats. So it's funny, these are actually, to me, more challenging than a regular pull-up or chin-up. I think probably because I really can't cheat. It's all lat. So like I'm puffing right now.
I'm going to show you 2 drills for that. Like I said, the external obliques are secondary stabilizers of the spine and extremely commonly neglected by lifters, and when trained accordingly can massively contribute to the stability of the low back and being able to maintain a neutral position during an over and under carry. So you're essentially working on this side. You don't have to do it fast. You have to do it nice and controlled. And the key is to try to push up on this kettlebell towards the sky and then keep your rib cage down.
So carry this in one and then overhead in the other. So I'm trying to keep my ribs tucked down, but pushing up, right? And how far do I walk?
I usually do 60 yards.
Yep.
Just do better. Do you do any pause deadlifts? Do you ever add those in?
I have. I hate them.
Are you good at them? Like, does it take away some of the rounding or no?
I don't remember. To be honest, the last time I did them in my program, it would have been when I had kind of first started out. I haven't done them in a while, so I could reincorporate them back in.
Yeah, those would be good just for positional motor control cueing.
Yep.
Internal, because you're the one that's gonna have to really, really fight that.
Yeah. So So would you do the pause on the concentric or the eccentric or both? Because the program that I've done, I've only done them, actually I think I did them on both. So I'd pause on the concentric, extend up, and then I would come back down, pause again, and then press the bar down. So
you can do either. I like whatever some people call them demo deadlifts or whatever, just top down deadlifts.
Yeah.
Where you start from a rack,
Yeah.
start from there, and then you just slowly lower it down up here, and then you put it back down, and
Okay.
then you initiate it again. Demo deadlifts or whatever they're called. I called them demo deadlifts once, and I got so much shit on YouTube.
demo deadlifts.
That's what I called them, but apparently they're not called that.
Everyone has a different name for everything.
Yeah.
Go
Top
with it.
down deadlifts, whatever you want to call it. This is one of my favorite variations of the row. All the credit goes to Dr. Jordan Shallow because he's the one who taught me it. It's basically a, so with this, you'll obviously be able to target lats, but also external abdominal obliques because of the position that you're gonna put your feet in. So a traditional row, people usually do it like this, right? With their hips facing forward. And there you get a little bit of lats, but that's it. If you position your legs like this, you're gonna have to open up to this side and then row here. So you're engaging this whole, because it's rotating you, right? So you're engaging your external abdominal obliques on this side, and then your lat is getting a way bigger stretch than it would if you were just doing a row like this. So it's like a sumo stance. You're gonna be
Coming across the
side,
body.
yep, and then opening up all the way, letting your body go all the way down and then up again. So if you think about the action of the external abdominal obliques as contralateral rotation, ipsilateral flexion. So you're doing exactly that. He's gonna be push your legs out this way, don't let it collapse in.
So sumo stance.
Yep. Perfect.
Okay, I have a question for you. When I do this, I think you can probably like move your body as you're rowing across. Do I want to keep my body? Am I just trying to isolate this movement, or am I going to come up?
You want to move it because you want to try to engage the external obliques, and the only way to do
So
it
get
is
deflection.
allowing them to do the rotation and then deflection.
Okay, so I want to kind of move a little bit.
Exactly.
So come back in here.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's probably super light.
It is, but it's good to practice late, right? I haven't done it before. Cool.
So technique for accessory exercises matters. I see a lot of people just focusing on the technique of their squat, bench, and deadlift, and then just kind of leaving the accessory technique. They don't care. They do them really fast. They do them without being mindful. But that's part of the effectiveness of an exercise is your ability to do it correctly with correct technique, so that you're ensuring that it's targeting the muscle that you want to target. Because otherwise, then you're just moving through motions and you're not really doing much.
Yeah. I see a lot of people like overload, like it doesn't matter what the exercise, but lower body, upper body, like putting a stupid amount of weight on the bar, and their technique is absolutely shit. Like, you know, they're not even using the effective muscles. So, yeah, I completely get that.
Absolutely. Yeah, because adding more weight to an exercise is not the only way that you could make an exercise more efficient, or that you can make a muscle grow bigger. There are several things that go into it that are not only weight dependent. So this one's one of my favorites for the glutes and hammies, training hip extension, and also just for general low back health. We know that the muscles that are in the lower back are postural muscles. That means that they're mostly type 1 aerobic fibers. So you should train them like that. You don't always need to hammer them with heavy weight. You should also be including into your workout low weight, high volume exercises kettlebell swings are a great exercise for that. Back extensions, anything that you can do for several reps, for several sets, because it directly trains the physiology of the fibers of the lower back. Now you can also do it wider stance. I love doing mine kind of like in a sumo stance. The band, all that it does is that it ensures that you really put some oomph into the hip extension portion, and then you're not just swinging the kettlebell up and down, which is a mistake a lot of people make when they're doing kettlebell swings. And the reason why I do it only up to eye level, that's called a Russian kettlebell swing, as opposed to an American kettlebell swing that's all the way up. The reason why I do it like that is because you can do it a little bit heavier and just focus on the hip extension part. And you can see how out of shape I am. I just did 6 reps and I'm like out of breath.
And now she's gonna make me do the same weight. Yeah, right. Okay, so 6 to 8 reps. Now I'm obviously gonna be thinking about keeping my core on, tailbone kind of tucked under, and just keeping it nice and in line with my chin, right?
Just focus on squeezing your butt at the end of the movement as hard as you can. Just like all hips and squeeze, fully extend your hips.
Yeah, that's good. It's good. I really, compared to, like, I've never done it with bands before, you really have to concentrate on keeping everything tight because you've got resistance coming back at you, whereas normally without the bands, that kettlebell is kind of just freely going where you're in control. So, yeah, I definitely found myself having to engage a little bit more through my core.
The thing with all of these movements is that they won't fatigue you to the same degree as, say, doing a squat, a bench, or a deadlift. So these are exercises that you could be doing every day or every other day, and that you should be doing every day or every other day if you're trying to fix something like the rounding of the lower back, or even if you're trying to make your back stronger because you've had injuries in the past or because you have an injury currently. Things don't get fixed or don't get better if you only do this stuff once a week or twice a week. It's not the same as training your biceps or your triceps. This is stuff that you need to be doing every single day, extremely diligently, with a lot of intention. A lot of people get frustrated when it comes to injuries, rehab, and even fixes of your technique, because they think that if they practice it once or twice, then that's all you need to get better. But it's like anything, you know? It's consistent work.
One of the big things, like Lane with his injury, he never really used to do any kind of back prehab or health, like back health exercises. And obviously he ended up getting quite injured, and now, like, every single day without failure, it is all of the rehab exercises before every single workout, just trying to make sure he's in proper position. He's strengthening those weaknesses that he had, and you can see how easy it would be to kind of just give up and go, okay, well, now I'm back to being good, in good health, my back feels good, but it's about, you know, continuously doing that and making sure it becomes part of your programming so that you stay healthy and not re-injure yourself again. So yeah.
Even if you don't have an injury, I think trunk, core, whatever you want to call it, exercises, back exercises, have to be the pillar, the base of any sort of strength training program. Because if you don't have a stable core or a stable trunk or back, whatever you want to call it, then you are not going to be able to push as much weight in your extremities. Proximal stability before distal control. So, yeah.
All right, okay, I have a couple of quick questions I want to ask you. So, if you guys don't know, I'm going to ask Stefi what her all-time PRs are for her powerlifting. So, Stefi, do you want to tell the listeners what you do for your deadlift, your squat, and your bench press, just to give you a bit of an idea of how amazing this girl is?
Are we going pounds or kilos?
Doesn't matter, you can do either. I think my audience is familiar with both. We're just asking pounds or kilos. Australians, you guys need to get up to speed with pounds, and US people, you guys need to get up to speed with kilos. So we'll sell both.
Okay. So my best squat is 230 kilos, 507 pounds. Bench is 110 kilos, 242 pounds. and deadlift is 247.5 kilos, 545 pounds.
Yeah, that is absolutely incredible. And not only is she super strong, Stefi is also a doctor of physical therapy, so I'm learning from somebody that is incredibly gifted and knowledgeable in this area. My background, my expertise is nutrition, so it's really awesome to have somebody of this kind of caliber coming along and hanging out with us for the day to talk like muscle, physical therapy, rehab, and to try and improve our lifts. So yeah, we're super stoked to have you. Thank you so much for helping me out with my lifts.
Pleasure.